Okay, chapter 51, Dogtown. Katherine, Applegate, and Gennifer, Choldenko. Chapter 51, A Tail Out. I asked Mouse to run over to the office and check the clipboard, but he shook his head no. Then he pointed at Metalhead. I motioned for Mouse to hurry, but he crossed his arms and glared at me, his tail thumping the ground. For a little guy, he sure was stubborn. I gave up and hopped over to find out what Metalhead was yapping about. I've been trying to tell you. I know we can assist Geraldine. Please hear me out, Metalhead said. I'm all ears, I said. If I share my idea with you, will you and the little guy assist me in my pursuit? Metalhead asked. I considered my answer carefully. I didn't want Metalhead to leave Quinn. Quinn needed him, and I knew Quinn would be back. But I couldn't stand to lose Geraldine either. If your idea works, if it saves Geraldine, I said. Metalhead nodded, and we touched noses, which is how dogs promise. We need to initiate a tail out. Get everyone involved, Metalhead said. A what? I asked. A tail out. When Dogtown opens tomorrow, every dog turns away from the patrons. No tricks, no nuzzling, no puppy eyes. If a human gets close, we growl. Only Geraldine is friendly. Only Geraldine does her act. Only Geraldine sticks her nose through the fence, licks, and loves up the humans. This was a lot to ask. It meant all the dogs in Dogtown would have to give up their dreams of finding a forever home. Just for one day, but still. Girls, stop, please. Maybe it was a trick. An opportunity for the robot dogs to get the upper hand. What about the other E-dogs? Can you get them on board? I asked. Probably better if we get Mouse to unplug them. My mouth dropped open. What a brilliant idea. Management plugged them in every night. Why not unplug them? Do we have a deal? He asked. Yes, I said, touching noses again. We do. Chapter 52. Diva of Dogtown. Most of the humans who came to Dogtown wanted a little dog. Only a few were looking for a big dog, especially a 220-pounder like Geraldine. That's like 3 of Maisie. Maisie's huge. The black and white dog. She's huge. 3 of them all in one dog? That is big. Nobody wanted an old dog either. Old dogs had big vet bills that were set in their ways, and they didn't have long to live. If they got a puppy, they'd have him for 10, 12, 15 years. If they got an old dog, it might be only 1 or 2. They're not going to quit, are they? But Metalhead's idea was the only one we had, so I threw my heart into making it work. Getting all the dogs on board would be a tall order. Every dog woke up in the morning dreaming of being chosen. Nobody wanted to give up that chance. I started with Geraldine's best buddies. Okay, get your chart out because we're getting ready to read a bunch of people that are in Dogtown, okay? And you need to write them down. You've got Trooper, the Mastiff. Was all in before I could even got the question out. I wasn't surprised. We all suspected that Trooper had a thing for Geraldine. A Mastiff is also very big. Soon all the big dogs had signed on. The reception was surprisingly good with the medium-sized dogs too. They looked up to the big dogs. Everybody said yes. Until I got to Dasha, the diva of Dogtown. Dasha, an Irish setter, had been a show dog once. She spent most of her day grooming herself and telling anyone who would listen about the time she got second place in her category. When I explained the plan to Dasha, she said, "Who?" "Geraldine," I said. "The St. Bernard in 22. "Oh, her, yes. She says I'm beautiful," Dasha said. Dasha was like a foxtail in your ear. All she could talk about was Dasha. I was about to go on a rant about how the whole world didn't revolve around her when Mouse whapped me with his tail. He bugged his eyes out at me, and I held my bark. Instead, I said, "Of course she did. We all do." It was true. Dasha was stunning. No one could figure out why she hadn't been adopted. Even so, there's nothing more difficult than giving a dog a sincere compliment when you want to take a bite out of their leg. "Does she?" Dasha asked. Mouse's tail continued to hit my leg, so I nodded. If there was a best of Dogtown, you'd win, I said. Dasha's ears perked up. You think so? I do, I said. Is there a best of Dogtown trophy? She asked. She was in her dog show stance. Back straight, ears perked, tail straight out. Mouse wrapped his tail around my leg and pulled it so tightly it squeezed the blood out of my only front paw. Not yet, I said. Oh, she said. So, what about tomorrow? I asked. Tomorrow, yes. You know, I've noticed the hair on my hind legs could use a trim. I should get that taken care of before the Best of Dogtown competition, Dasha said, licking her back leg. Thank you for helping out Geraldine, I managed to say before Mouse's tail yanked me out of there. Good for Mouse, right? Chapter 53, A Love Fest. By the time we opened the next day, everyone had agreed to the tail out. Now we just needed one human to fall in love with Geraldine. The first family who came in was only interested in e-dogs. Since the robot dogs had not been charged, the family decided to come back another day. Next, a big lumbering man with muscular arms bulging out of a black leather vest strode in. He had a scar on his lip and a nose that looked like it had been broken a few times. He was drinking a soda, and when he was done, he crushed the can into a tiny ball in his fist. But when he saw Bear curled up sleeping, the man's scary face melted, and I saw the little boy he had once been. Why, hello, little fellow. He clapped his hands, his scarred face as gentle as could be. When Bear didn't respond, the man's massive shoulders slumped and his eyes got watery. At Dasha's pen, the big man whistled. What a beauty! Dasha, being Dasha, could not resist a compliment. At first, she preened for him. Then she remembered she promised and turned her tail out. The big man waited for her to turn around. When she didn't, he moved on, the chains around his massive boots clinking with every step. Trooper, who still had on his reading buddy sweater, was doing very well ignoring the man. Here, boy! The man wiggled his big hand into the pocket of his black leather pants and pulled out a dog biscuit. Trooper's nose twitched. Drool dripped from his mouth. Come on, fella, I'm not going to hurt you, the man said. Trooper stared at the biscuit, transfixed. Then his eyes moved to Geraldine, and he set his chin down in his pool of drool and did not get up. The man's face grew long, his steps slow, his great shoulders sagged. I was worried he was going to leave before he even got to Geraldine, but he kept walking. Oh, how he smiled when he saw her, his eyes shining with kindness. Why, hello, Geraldine, he said, reading the whiteboard sign. A volunteer brought Geraldine out, and she wagged her tail and nuzzled him. Aren't you a sweetheart, he said, petting her. He watched her do her tricks. He scratched behind her ear and under her chin and gave her a belly rub. It was a love fest. He was there for the better part of an hour. Geraldine had found a home. Chapter 54, The Motorcycle. Then suddenly I heard the sound of a motorcycle starting up. Uh-oh. You couldn't take Geraldine home on a motorcycle. She simply wouldn't fit. Maybe he had a car at home. Maybe he had a friend with a car. Maybe he would come back wearing hiking boots and walk her home. But as 2 o'clock became 3 and then 4, my stomach began to hurt. If he came back tomorrow, it was going to be too late. Chapter 55. When I was a kid. By this time, the dogs were getting antsy. They'd given up their chances for a home, and it hadn't helped Geraldine. They were ready to abandon the plan. I didn't blame them, but I wasn't going to give up on Geraldine. We had to at least give her one entire day. As the minutes ticked by, I did what I could to hold the coalition together. The clock said 4:15. A rush of humans came in and then left. 4:30. 4:35. 4:45. Border Collies are good with numbers. Some of us can even tell time, and I have a lot of Border Collie in me. But on that day, I wished I didn't know what numbers meant. Dogtown closed at 5. Even if someone wanted Geraldine, there'd be no time to get the paperwork done. I sat down next to her, wondering what to say. Geraldine spoke first. You got a big old heart, Chance, she whispered in her deep voice. her big black nose near my ear. You gave this your all, dog. First thing I do when I get to doggy heaven, I'm gonna snag one of them cloud beds for me and the other I'll save for you. We'll see each other again, dog. You bet we will. I tried to breathe, but the air wouldn't go in and it wouldn't go out. I had so many feelings welled up in my chest. I almost didn't hear the commotion by the front desk. It sounded like more folks had arrived. I hopped over to check it out. I'm sorry, we're about to close, front desk announced. And the people turned around. It was all I could do to keep from nipping front desk's ankles. Didn't she realize this was Geraldine's last day? And then, suddenly, a tiny woman in a baseball cap came through the door. She had a great mass of curly gray hair and a big smile set inside soft, wrinkled cheeks. By her side was a small boy with a half hop to his step. I'm sorry, front desk hurried to the door. We're about to. We won't be long, the grandma said, plowing by front desk. I like this little lady's attitude. Grandma types generally head for the small dog pens, but not this one. She and the boy walked by the poodles and Pomeranians as if they didn't exist, and then past the medium-sized dogs, the bulldogs, and the beagles. They walked by all of them until they got to Geraldine. Geraldine was tired. She'd done her adopt me routine more times than we could count that day. I could hear her knees creak when she stood up. The grandma opened Geraldine's pen door, and when she leaned down to pet Geraldine, I couldn't tell whose knees were groaning, the woman's or Geraldine's. Then the tiny lady said the words that every dog in Dogtown knew were magic. I had a St. Bernard when I was a kid. Best dog I ever had. Chapter 56, Last Minutes. There wasn't time for Geraldine to do her routine, so she gave the little boy a big sloppy lick and nuzzled his leg. Then she leaned over ever so gently against the gray-haired lady. Soon, front desk was on the scene. I'm sorry, ma'am. Dogtown is closed, she said. This is the dog I want, this Geraldine, the grandma declared, as if she hadn't heard a word front desk had said. The little boy gave an oversized nod. Then he buried his face in Geraldine's thick fur. We're not leaving unless she comes with us, the grandma declared. Front desk's eyebrows shot up, her jaw turned hard, and her hands flew to her hips. Excuse me, ma'am. The tiny woman, who was twice the age of the front desk, strode closer and closer until she was right up to front desk's face, and she said, This dog needs a home. Front desk stepped back. She was no match for this woman, who could have been a bouncer, that's how tough she was. What was front desk going to do? Call the police on a tiny gray-haired woman who wanted to give a home to a dog in the last minutes of her last day on Earth? Front desk came to her senses. Soon she was bent over the paperwork, and I was saying goodbye to our beloved Geraldine. Oh, Chance, you hold it together now, dog. I found me a home, Geraldine whispered, and you will too. Then all of us at Dogtown began to howl as we watched Geraldine lumber out of Dogtown with her forever family. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna cry. Okay, chapter 57. Group Wag. We celebrated big time that night. We danced and pranced and staged a group wag, the likes of which had never been seen. Long and lovely, short and stubby, bushy and bobbed, curly and corkscrew. Every dog in Dogtown wagged her tail at the same time. Our hearts were bursting. We'd done our part to help our sweet Geraldine find her forever home. Your heart is a muscle, I told Mouse at dinner that night. It grows stronger the more you use it. Metalhead stuck his nose through the fence. I'm planning on leaving tomorrow, he announced. He didn't care to discuss matters of the heart. He was just concerned that I would keep up my end of the deal. I'll bring the leash first thing in the morning, I said. Chapter 58. Y'all think the escape's going to work? Chapter 58 is called The Escape. Do you think it's going to work? I don't know how he's going to get out. Even if he escapes, how's he going to get out the front door, right? I always make good on my promises. That may be my Aussie side. We're very responsible. So I got up from the first train whistle, hopped behind the counter, picked out a tiny dog leash, and made my way down to the basement. When I arrived, Mouse was waiting. Where are you going? I asked Metalhead as I pushed the leash through the chain link. Home, he said. Mouse slipped the handle over his shoulder and began climbing up to the latch. How are you planning to get out of Dogtown? I thought you and the little guy could create a distraction, then I'll sneak out the front door. I hadn't planned on helping Metalhead with anything beyond getting out of the basement, and I certainly wasn't going to put Mouse in jeopardy. He was more vulnerable than we were. If a human saw him, they'd set a mouse trap, put out poison, or call in the cats. I shook my head. Too risky. Front desk likes you. Just go lick her foot, Metalhead suggested as Mouse hooked the leash on the latch and dropped the link down. Metalhead grabbed the leash with his steel teeth and pulled. The latch clicked open and Metalhead was out. Chapter 59, The Smell of Home. The escape from the basement seemed to happen more quickly than Metalhead thought it would. He quivered as he walked out of his cage. Was he scared? Not possible. Metal dogs didn't have feelings of any kind. I think this one does, don't you? Anywho, we'd done our part. Now we needed to bow out gracefully. But it was still early. Front desk and the volunteers didn't come until 7:30, so we walked with Metalhead to the lobby. No danger in that. Then Metalhead did something that surprised me. He started talking about his human. I find great satisfaction in hearing my little human Jimmy read to me. I love when he talks about his adventures at school. Once he brought me to show and tell, and all the kids took turns giving me orders. Oh, what a day that was. I love stories, so I stayed a little longer than I should have. The next thing I knew, there were footsteps on the path. Oh, that wasn't him still talking. That was Chance saying, I love stories, so I stayed a little longer than I should have. The next thing I knew, there were footsteps on the path. We ducked behind the counter, and the keys clanked, and the lock turned. Awful stuffy in here, management told a volunteer as she pushes open the door. At least it's warm, the volunteer said, taking her mittens off. I'm going to keep the door open for just a minute to air the place out, management said, propping open the door with a bag of kibble. That was lucky. The smells coming from outdoors flooded my nostrils. Wet leaves, pine trees, wood fires burning, the intense aroma of blue sky. I hadn't smelled the outside in such a long time. When management and the volunteer had gone to put their lunches away, I hopped to the door just close enough to get a nose full of freedom. What was the harm in one little sniff? Chapter 60, The Call of the Open Door. We waited for management and the volunteer to walk back to the employee break room to put their lunches in the refrigerator. Now, with the door propped open, all Metalhead would have to do was walk out. Mouse climbed on my back and we escorted Metalhead to the door. Good luck, I said. But the smell. I couldn't turn away. Even the best trained dogs have a difficult time resisting an open door. Still, I knew better. It was the beginning of December. There was no way a three-legged dog and a small mouse could survive the winter outside. I turned away from the open door, but as I did, I saw something. Something I dreamed about every night. Chapter 61, The Sign. I saw a sign with a dog's photo and the words, Lost Dog. I have trouble deciphering photos sometimes, especially from a distance, but the dog in the photo had a white patch over her eye. So does Chance. The dog's paws were tucked under her, so I couldn't tell if there were 3 or 4, but the Bessers wouldn't know I had 3 legs. Ooh, that's the first time we've heard the name, right? Maybe he said them one other time, but Bessers. And the Bessers don't know he has 3 legs? There's more to this story. All of their photos of me would be from back when I had 4 legs. Of course, I knew I'd been gone for nearly a year. The chances of there being a sign for me was infinitesimal. But there it was. Management had said Dogtown needed airing out. The door would be open for a little while anyway. I would hop to the sign, see who was on it, and hop back inside. Easy peasy. Mouse thought this was a bad idea. His tail was whapping me on my left side, then on my right, but I ignored him, like I was in a trance. Jessie and Professor Besser. were looking for me. Oh, here's the picture. Chapter 62, Lost Dog. I hobbled as fast as I could to the telephone pole with Mouse grasping my fur and whapping me with his tail. My heart began to pound. I could almost smell the blueberry pancakes. The closer I got, the slower I hopped. The dog had a patch over his eye just like me, but his hair was shorter and his nose not so pointy. I just needed to see it better, I told myself, but when I got closer, it didn't say last dog. It said last blog. It was a dog blog, the last one of the year, and the dog in the photo wasn't me. My dogs have given you guys a show, haven't they? All right. The end. Until next time. Now they're outside. They better hurry and get back inside, right? Bye.